What's up, good people? Thank you for joining me here in the lab on Good Cube Kitchen. My name is Yassine Butler, and before I get into anything else, I want to thank you all so much. By the time this video airs, I'll either be celebrating into the next round of the Fave Chef 2021 competition, or I'll be riding the bench, and that's okay. The fact that I got so much love and support that I stayed in the top 5 for the entire competition absolutely blows my mind. The fact that I was even able to get all the way up to #1 over someone who has a huge 60,000 member following at all was a testament to your love, your support, and I am eternally grateful for that. But guess what? If I don't win, we're coming back in 2022 and we're going to do it bigger, we're going to do it better, and we're going to win then. With that being said, let's jump into this actual recipe that we're going to make. If you've been following me on social media, which clearly you have, you know that last week I had to have 2 teeth removed. I was in so much pain and agony that I was like, what am I going to eat? Yes, even in pain and agony, what I was going to eat was the most important question that I had to answer. With that being said, I actually threw together this really delicious soup. It took some pieces of pork that I had in the freezer and some vegetables that I just had lying around, and I made this really good, thick, dense broth. And I was like, this is so good that I want to share it with you all because it's a mild level of difficulty, but it could be done in a crock pot, it could be done in an Instapot, or it could just be done on the stove. So this week I'm going to show you the Instapot method, and I'm going to explain the crock pot and stove method as well. So let's hop into it.
First thing we need to prep is our vegetables. So I'm going to slice or shred up half of a green cabbage. You have to make sure that you decore your cabbage because we're not cooking the cabbage. We're just going to allow it to steep in our broth. So slicing it in half and then half again, and then run your knife through it as fine as you want it. You can use bigger chunks or smaller chunks. We're going to do the exact same process to the red cabbage. Because this is a much denser cabbage, it takes a little bit more work to get through. Going to again take out the core and then run it through, giving it a nice shred. Gonna set all of this to the side and slice on our mandolin 4 yellow squash, or about 1.5 pounds of yellow squash. Then going to cut this onion in 2 ways. First, I'm going to dice this onion really small, not a mince, just a nice small dice. And that's going to be used for the broth because I want a nice burnt onion flavor, and a nice small dice will burn really quickly and give me the flavor that I'm looking for. The next preparation of the onion is going to be a nice thin slice, and the reason I'm slicing these is it's going to be a part of my garnish and flavoring. So I'm going to slice these really thin and put them in the bowl with the cabbage because that's all for the final. As always, whenever you're dealing with meat, you want to pat it dry before browning it. So I'm going to season it with some salt and some Chinese 5-spice. If you can't find Chinese 5-spice, you can substitute with pumpkin spice. I know that may seem sacrilegious, but pumpkin spice and 5-spice have about 60% of the same flavors in it, and the variations between them are not so egregious that you can't go with it. After you brown this really nicely on both sides, you're going to dump your onions right in, and then you're going to dump some mushrooms in. I'm going to let the onions and the mushrooms get some color on them. Those mushrooms and onions are going to be cooked down in our pressure cooker with the roast. So giving them some color first, and then I'm going to add over all of our scraps because all of that scrap is great flavor and it's a cheap way to make a good stock. So add our pot roast over into our pressure cooker, and now we're going to season our broth. About 1/4 to 1/2 cup of soy sauce, depending on how much of that umami flavor you want. Next, gonna add about 2 tablespoons of whole black peppercorns, or Szechuan peppercorns. Going to add about 2.5 teaspoons of crushed red pepper and about 2 tablespoons of freshly grated ginger or ginger paste like I'm doing. I hate grating ginger, it sucks. Now I'm going to add over my new obsession, fried garlic. I found this at a Ross. I was just looking and I tried it and I'm so in love. Then I'm going to add over about 5 cloves of garlic. Of course, you can go more than that. Just going to pop them with your knife, throw them over. And then we're going to add over about a quart of water to our pressure cooker. And then just cover it up and allow it to cook for 15 minutes on the meat setting. The 15 minutes is actually going to take closer to 45 minutes, but when it's done, it will be nice and tender. I allowed it to naturally vent the pressure instead of instant releasing it. So, as you can see how tender it is, it's falling apart, coming right out of the pot. I'm going to allow this to cool before I shred it up, and I am going to fish out all of my stock ingredients, my cabbage cores and my onion peels and all of that. It imparted great flavor, but you don't want it in your final product. Now I'm going to add over 2 cans of coconut milk to give this some extra creaminess and some great depth of flavor. Got to give it a taste before you go any further, because now that this base is pretty much done, you're seasoning for final plating. I forgot to add over my dried shiitake mushrooms. Shiitake mushrooms are going to give a great added umami burst, and so I'm going to crush up, let's say, about half an ounce of dried mushrooms, along with some more crushed red pepper, soy sauce, and ginger to taste. Hit it with just a little bit more 5 spice, and I'm going to allow this to cook on the saute setting. Going to add over a pound of our cremini mushrooms. If I had the money, I would have gone with all shiitake, but I don't got money like that. So a pound of cremini mushrooms, and then while that is cooking, I'm going to shred up the pork, because now that it's cooled, it won't lose too much moisture while shredding. If you were going to make this in the slow cooker, you could brown it first and then put it over into your crock pot and let it cook on low for about 4 hours. While our mushrooms are still cooking, we're going to prep our noodles. Now, these noodles come in a bag of water, and that water smells awful and it doesn't taste good. So you want to strain out as much of that water as possible, pushing it down through some sort of colander or a sieve. Then you want to let them sit in some tap water, hot tap water, for about 5 minutes to get any excess flavor out, and then squeeze as much of that liquid out again as possible. Now that that's done, you're going to add over your squash to your pot. You don't want your squash to cook very long, no more than about 5 minutes. You just want it to get almost done, not completely done, because you want that good bite and a little bit of crunch left. So now we're going to build out our ramen. Grab some chopsticks. Now we're going to take our extremely hot broth and pour it first over our vegetables, then over everything else. going to hit it with just a drizzle of sesame oil. Some green onion. Some sweet peppers. A little chili oil. I got it from some takeout. Why waste it? And then for just a little bit of sweet, I'm gonna drop just a little bit of pickled ginger. Now, pickled ginger isn't keto friendly, but I'm having so little of it, it's not going to be a problem. What I really love about all of these flavors is how they all come together in such a well-balanced layer. You have this strong mushroom and coconut milk as your foundation, and then everything else is built on top of that. You have your fried garlic and your fresh garlic that come in and kind of permeate each layer, and then you have your Chinese 5-spice, which gives it this really good, rich, deep warmth. On top of that, you then have the sweetness of the yellow squash, and as you're digging in, once the cabbage starts to wilt down, you'll have this good crunchiness, but you'll also have that little bit of bitter, little bit of sweet that you get from cabbage when it's at that particular stage. The noodles are really great, even though they are a noodle, because of the way that they're made with a yam flour and mostly fiber, they are still keto friendly. So if I eat this much, this will not put me over my carb count for the day. So overall, this is a really delicious, really healthy way to get a comfort food like ramen into your diet. It's also not super difficult to eat because we pressure cooked our pork, so it's really tender. It's not going to hurt my tooth, and it's just really delightful, and I'm super excited to dig in and eat all of this. So thank you very much for joining me on this week's episode of The Lab here on Good Cute Kitchen. Whether I won the competition or I'm sitting on the couch, I thank you so much for all of the votes and all of the support. I'm super excited for what we're going to do next. Thank you, and as always, thank the good Lord for good food and good times. All that good is Good Cubed. Follow me on all social media platforms at Good Cubed, GOODCUB 3D on all social media. Thank you as always. Have a good one. Peace.